yeah, we've got a pretty good show tonight, so I think everybody will get plenty out of it. I mean, first of all, thanks very much for each of you for joining us. Obviously, club rugby is the engine room of the sport. Without you guys doing the work that you guys do in clublands, the sport doesn't exist. So thanks very much. Appreciate you guys taking the interest, and we want to support you guys, in each of the provinces to grow this game, because it's only going to work if we all push in the same direction and work with each other to get things going. So it's great for the opportunity to bring so many people together, and it's fantastic to sort of meet new faces across provincial lines. Just while we start, I'd just like to give a sort of traditional territorial, call it, acknowledgement. So we just acknowledge that we're on traditional territories in the prairies of many First Nations, Métis and Inuit peoples whose footsteps have marked this land for centuries. So, okay, so just a quick rundown as to why we are doing this. We obviously want to build you guys into successful rugby clubs. It's in our interests to make club rugby better. It's in everybody's interest, so we hope that this is a valuable resource. We like to do it now because obviously you guys are sort of starting into the planning phase for this upcoming season and for future seasons. And I think, we like to do this as a group presentation just because, it gives us access to a bigger network of people. One of the most important things about this last year and going into this year as well is, we want you guys to make connections across prairies with other clubs. One of the things about rugby is obviously the touring culture, the links that you make, friends will make across the globe. So, don't wait for your provincial unions to organise things necessarily. Be happy to reach out to other clubs and make some contacts and, make some friends. And, obviously we'd like, you guys to really share what your club is doing well, where you need help. And, peer-led learning is the best for this. So please, use the other clubs as resources. Last year we had some fantastic clubs with great ideas on board, and we certainly took away just as much as we put in, definitely last year. So just an overview of 2022. So we're going to go through tonight the planning cycle, mainly around operational plans, reviewing the plans, and ensuring that there's a succession plan in place. Next week, we've got lifelong membership. So that goes over long-term athletic development, recruiting, setting up your juniors properly. We've got some great guests from Rugby Australia and Rugby Canada coming in to talk about that particular one. And alumni. Week 3, we'll be doing Taking Care of Your People, which will include Volunteer Manitoba coming in to do a presentation on volunteer management, and a return of a past Empowering the Prairies presenter for coach development with Graham Moffat. Week 4, we do have things planned around event planning, tournaments and sponsorship, and I think that's a really valuable one particularly, but obviously we hope you get a lot out of all of them. On tonight, go through a bit of a quick introduction, and then we'll get straight into the creating a season plan and evaluating the plans. Our presenters tonight are both from Rugby Americas North. They're both people that were with us last year heavily. I think Scott was on at every single webinar we ran last year, but he's a fantastic resource. Scott is from Winnipeg, and I believe he was the first Canadian coach to defeat an English team with a women's team about 20 years ago. So there's his sort of claim to Canadian fame. But we've also got Erin, who was one of the driving forces behind the Rookie Rugby Mass Participation Program in Canada. She's located across the border, a little bit to the south in Colorado. Both of them are fantastic resources, and definitely look forward to them. And then we're going to end with Pete just talking through succession planning, and we'll go into a quick breakout room around that. We invite you as well to stick around at the end. It's up to you guys. It's just a social chat, informal, and a great chance to sort of network and ask any questions that you may want answered outside of the scope, or just didn't get touched on in the presentation. Just a reminder on our questions tonight. If you haven't done them in advance, they're pretty quick. So just keep them in mind, write them down, and just think about them on the spot. And I'm sure you'll catch up by the time the presenters are going on. Okay, so just a bit of housekeeping. So yeah, just if you could please include your club name and province in your username, that'd be fantastic, just to help us identify who's who. Please just ask any questions that you have, just throw it in the chat box and we'll make sure that the presenter gets onto it when they're given a chance. We ask that you actively participate in the breakout rooms. There are no stupid questions, there's no stupid comments. Please just speak up, get involved. That's how it's just like the sport, you get out what you put in. So please, please take up that opportunity, that valuable opportunity to talk to other clubs. And we do hope that in doing that, you're going to make some connections, and please, maintain these connections outside of this. We're hopefully back on for a full season this year, so it'll be great to see some interprovincial friendships grow. And again, if at any point you do need help, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the staff on this call. So on this call, we've got Pete and Brianne, both from Alberta. We've got Jordan and Andrew, both from Saskatchewan, and myself and Gord in Manitoba. And we just asked just to sort of keep things somewhat streamlined, that if you just make sure that you just sort of try to direct your comments to your relevant provincial people, just so they sort of know what's going on as well. Okay. Just a reminder on some of the stuff we had last year as well. We've sort of expanded the topics. We're going a little bit deeper and building on the stuff from last year. So that does mean that the stuff that we have is still valid and it's still a great resource. So it's something that you can definitely go back and check out. We definitely recommend going through the club evaluation checklist, and just it gives a great self-assessment tool of where you guys are at. And as last year, these webinars will be recorded as well and posted on the internet for anyone that wasn't able to make it, or if you can't make a certain session. And of course, if there's people that you think should be here and aren't, they're more than welcome to sign up for the next session or etc. Right, drop into the ones that they want. But yeah, just a quick one. This is what this sort of was all leading to anyway, is basically just a cycle that supports you guys growing your clubs and supporting the sport. So we put on these series as a an educational tool, but the work really has to happen all the time. And what these eventually will likely lead to is some form of development standards, so that you guys can benchmark yourselves, and we can sort of ensure that rugby's on the right path. We're seeing that in a lot of other sports right now, and it's definitely something that is on the radar for Rugby Canada and the Prairies as well. So are our presenters here yet, Andrew? I can't see them yet.
I don't see them yet either.
Okay, well, I think we might just take a quick 2-minute intermission. Apologies for the little disruption, but we're just going to have to make some quick phone calls and hopefully sort something out. Cheers.
Yeah.
Okay, just in the interest of not wasting everybody's time, just while we're trying to contact Scott and Erin, we'll actually just start with succession planning first. So Pete's going to take over from this point, and thanks very much, Pete, for thinking on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's thinking on the spot or just wanting to get it over with, and then we can really let the big guns, when they arrive, take over. So like Patrick said, my name is Peter Houlihan. I'm the executive director of Rugby Alberta now. So we're going to go over, a bit of succession planning. It's definitely something that you realize when you enter a role newly, how well or how poorly maybe that has been done and how it can affect performance. So again, my experience is a lot as a coach and then as a teacher. So I draw a lot from those two experiences and how a school's or team's succession plan, thinking about different ways that clubs look to recruit coaches. I know recently in Alberta, we've seen a number of our foreign coaches not be around as much. And then, so now clubs are all scrambling to find who the local coach is, or are there any Canadian born coaches? So we need to start to think about having a succession plan. So why is it important? Oops, hit the wrong button there. It enables your organization to share the workload among volunteers. So whether that's coaching junior teams, relying on just a parent, obviously the handover of roles. So every kind of 2 years, typically, right, we see some sort of turnover in different board positions. So how effectively are we navigating the turnover? It might make it more appealing if someone knows they're volunteering and there's a plan already made and I have to just follow these steps and we get to keep going and humming at that great pace. And then it just, it'll allow your organization to better serve its members and then create a better culture. Because again, when people know that they're welcomed, they're given easy roles, easy tasks, they're more likely to volunteer again. So I'm just going to go through a quick process, then we'll get into the breakout room and you can discuss how you would apply this into that question about do you have a succession plan for someone in your role? So basically, to start, we need to examine our organization's position. Are we an organization that has tons of volunteers? Do we need to recruit volunteers? Do we have volunteers that are aging out? So we need to identify the needs or the positions that need to be filled. We should look at the critical roles. So are we filling the secretary role first, the treasurer role first? Which one of those are we doing? We also might want to look at what do we want our club to look like in 5 and 10 years, because then we might need to start to look at who's going to be taking care of the programs down the road. Maybe you just want to continue what your club does well. So do you even know what you guys do well at say, I see Ken Trumpert with the Druids. So I'm sure he knows what he does well. And then probably, can you make that better every year? So step 2, identify skills required to fill the role. So last year in this development series, we had shared some resources on job descriptions. So do you have a proper job description for the role? And then someone again might read the description and say, yeah, I can do that. I have the skills. Do you need to make sure what experience do you need? Are there certain skills that you're actually looking for? Again, making that known to people that want to volunteer might actually snag somebody, right? They might have a bookkeeping habit that might lead to them becoming your treasurer, and then they're giving back to the program. And then are there any characteristics of maybe a current volunteer that you want or think really is necessary for that role? So how can you remember those kind of skills? So step 3, maybe assessing the gaps or identifying potential successors. So some things, again, what's worked well in the past. You could survey your volunteers or the current group of people you have and ask them about interests. What are your top 3 skills? What do you want to learn about? Maybe potentially find someone that you could groom into a role of a treasurer, a secretary, a sports Loma administrator would be a heck of a role for someone these days. So again, finding people's skills that are already within your organization and utilizing them. Perfect. So again, once you've done all these three things, your potential for having a good successor will be there. Now you need to just evaluate that plan once you've actually put it into action. So is this actually having a positive impact? Are you able to understand how and what the pulse of your organization is? And you can probably do that with the evaluation. So asking the volunteers, was it clear this year on what your role was? You know, a little follow-up survey. You know, what would you improve on for the next volunteer? Or again, you could ask the volunteer, could you create your task list for the next person? Or just for next year, what would you add to the task list? So thinking about some of those different aspects that you might use to create a successful transition. So we'll go into the breakout rooms and now just try and see if you can use those kind of steps to find somebody, or to talk about how you would find somebody for the role of president, treasurer, whatever you want. And so I think, Andrew, are you my breakout room guy now?
That I am.
Okay, so you'll be whisked away to the magical breakout world soon.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good number. I'm just checking to see that we just have a good distribution. Just trying to make sure that we get someone from, we don't all have all of one province together and not have, I think.
Anyone involved that hasn't been in the previous year?
Plenty.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So I'll spend more time on SMART.
Good. That's a good point. Well, you hope so. People are gonna lose John. Oh, sweet. Yeah. And people. For Rugby Day.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have sorted out somewhat of our technical difficulties, but we are sort of going to adjust things on the fly a little bit today. Got Scott with us. He's currently sort of tied up with the family situation at the moment, but he's agreed to sort of do a quick presentation for us on SMART goals and the planning stuff. And what we're actually going to do is we'll go along with that for a little bit, but we will get Scott and Erin at some point next week and record that, and we'll send that out just so that everybody gets the full presentation. But I'll turn it over to Scott. Thanks very much, Scott.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. And my deepest apologies for only being available for a short time tonight. Rugby is the most amazing thing in the world, but family still has to come ranked in, suitably regarding rugby. Now, when rugby's family, all the better. So I'm here to talk a bit about strategic planning. First of all, applause to all of you for being willing to take part in a program that's going to help you and that will help you deliver the game and grow the game where you are. Anyone who reaches out to say, I want to make rugby better where I am, is family for me. We're talking about strategic planning. Most of what humans do is planning, meaning I plan to get married one day and have kids. They hope that it'll happen. A strategy about that, make sure that it happens and happens in a way that you get it done the way you want it done. So strategic planning is having a goal and then saying, I've got a good way to make that goal happen. here's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at what's called a SMART plan. And I think, is it Andrew or someone who's going to drop into the chat area, the SMART strategic planning. SMART means, is it specific? I plan to get married one day is wide open. I plan to get married to a partner that shares my interests and goals is getting more specific. Is it measurable? I plan to get married once in the next 4 years. Okay, that'd be good. Is it achievable? Yeah, probably. Is it relevant to what you want to accomplish? So when we look at rugby and we say, I've got to go, I want to make more money for my club. How much more money? Why do you need to make more money? Is it relevant to your goals? Why do you need more money if you have no players, right? Is it relevant to what your real goals should be? And is it time tested? That's the last one, the T. When are you going to be able to measure this goal? So when we look at a specific measure, let's say something like make more money for my club. How much more money would be specific and measurable? Achievable? Okay, I want to make $1 million for my club next year. For most of us, not achievable. Is it relevant to what you want to accomplish? Why do I need more money? Why have more money if there's only 14 of us hanging around at practice? Will more money bring more players? Is it time tested? I want to make $1 million. If you say within a year, now it's time tested. So we're going to go off and look at your special projects. Each club, and I encourage, last year we talked about SMART goals. We talked about the need to have a few specific things your club can get better at this year. Not 50 things. There are 50. There's 50 for all of us. There's 50 things every club can get better at and that they want to. Pick one that you can really move forward. For this project we're going to talk about, pick one thing that you think this would make a big difference for my club. Is it more female leadership? Is it more youth players? Is it better coaching? Like pick one specific project you think is valuable for your club in the next year. And then we're going to build a specific goal that's measurable. How much? Achievable. Yeah, I think we can do that. Relevant, of course, it'll help us move forward. And when are you going to test it? And what I encourage you to do in your breakout rooms is you build that SMART goal, challenge each other on it. Say, hey, do you think you can? You can move this forward this way. Help build each other's goals and help fill in some slots in your conversations so that you come out with ideas on how you're actually going to make that goal happen, because amongst yourselves are way better ideas than I can offer you or that most someone from away can offer you. Clubs know what clubs have to do to get forward, and clubs have solved these problems again and again. So I encourage you, go into those groups, pick your one big goal, share it, sit down for 4 or 5 minutes to build out the how much, how is it measurable. Now, here's the next challenge. Attach resources to it. What will it take to do that? Is it people time? Is there actual money? Is it equipment? Is it field space? What are the resources you have to arrange to make that goal happen? That's under the achievable side. So when you get to achievable, what makes it achievable? So you're going to go into your breakout rooms and share that important goal that's going to make rugby better for you. Determine the resources you're going to need to make that happen. Share ideas about those resources. Bounce it around in your discussion for a while, right? How are you going to measure it? Time-wise, do you check on it every 2 months? Do you check on it every 4 months? Do you check on it every 5 years? If it's my scrum machine, I might check on that thing once a year. I need a scrum machine for my club. Yeah, I got it in a month. I need to check on the condition of the scrum machine occasionally, not every week. Well, actually, hold on. You should always check the safety of the scrum machine before you use it. But there's that. So when you have it, it's achievable, it's measurable, it's time tested. What resources do you need? Share some ideas and come back with the knowledge that you have established a goal and the how to do it that's going to be important for your club. This isn't about solving all problems. This is about engage in the exercise of building a good plan for one project. I'll offer this. If you say, have more players, that might not be specific enough. Oh, have 1,000 more players. You might be challenging achievable. If you say, we will have a youth women's and a youth men's team within the next 2 years, playing 7-a-side or 10-a-side rugby. Now you've targeted in a way that actually is one single project that you can put a person in charge of, or a couple of people. So narrow it down. Don't go too big. Narrow it down to something that you really can take a bite of and say, that will make a difference for us. So a question, and I know the group is probably mostly muted. I just want to make sure that this is understood. We're going to break it in our rooms, and what are we going to come back with after our 20-25 minutes of conversation? Who wants to share an idea to just understand that, you know, my language is coming through? One person, any one of you leaders.
Start a mini rugby program, flag program.
You're going to start a mini rugby program. So how many people are going to be in your mini rugby program? In the first year, how many people?
Our goal would be to have 50 kids registered.
50 kids registered in a mini rugby program by the end of the year.
Yes.
That's a great example of a specific measurable goal. And that's achievable. And then you look at the resources you need behind that and when you're going to check on each of those resources. So when we say time tested, you'll realize, oh, I need coaches. When am I going to check on the coaches? Well, that has to be before the kids show up. So you go to all the breakup parts of what does it take to make that happen? And you back up and you make a list and you write down that list of the coaches, the facility, some resources, some t-shirts would be great for the kids. You write down all the stuff that you think needs to make it happen. And then you take that and say, okay, 2 months from now, we need to check on, you know, the coaches and the managers and the fundraising. And 4 months from now on the marketing. And then 5 months from now, recruitment, boom, away we go. So thank you for that example. You're my new hero. I owe you a beer or a beverage of your choice. 7-Up's fine too.
You've picked a long way to drive. That's up north of Saskatoon. So,
hey, wait, is we're not PA?
I'm in the Meadow Lake area.
Meadow Lake. I go to Shell Lake every year I'm probably in Shell Lake for 6-7 months, 6-7 weeks, 6-7 weeks a year. I'll come find you in 2 weeks. I'll be driving up by there. I'll get you that beer.
I've driven farther for a beer. Yeah, you're welcome.
There we go. I'll find you. So thank you for that example. I hope then that's understood, and I'll encourage you to go to your breakout rooms. I have to leave now, but I know you'll banter around each other and come back and share your learnings about the process of strategic planning and what you might need to be better or to add or augment your skills for next time.
thanks very much, Scott. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
all for understanding that I have to dash, and best wishes.
Cheers. So we do ask that each group can sort of provide one sacrificial lamb / volunteer to sort of share their SMART goal when we're done this. And I think we're going with, is it, how long are the breakout rooms, Andrew? What do you reckon?
Well, at
least in my group, I hope all the discussion's quite valid, but we're just going to sort of ask anyone that does want to, maybe one person from each group might be willing to share an example. I'm going to pick on Christy Westbrook from the Ravens to start us off, but she's got a very interesting one, I think. And we're sort of just, I guess we didn't quite get through fully the process of like hashing out the goal in a SMART form, but Christy, I'll throw it over to you.
Okay. So my goal specifically was our main issue right now is the age restrictions that were introduced. Our team fully understands them and why they were created and are supportive of them, but it's thrown us for a bit of a loop because that's about half our 15s team right now. And so I think our goal moving forward is hopefully at least to scale back to a senior sevens team and having a place for our juniors to go and having the juniors sevens team at the very least. And ideally we'd like to have a senior 15s team. Now, whether that means that we could play on the team together, not sure if that's going to happen either, but we'd like to at least be able to field those numbers and then provide supports for other teams in our city and province to lend players or mix up players so we can at least get the games going, but we still want to maintain team numbers ideally. Yeah.
No, thanks very much, Fisher. So just to sort of to put that into SMART goal sort of terminology, we sort of, everyone in group one was sort of on a similar theme around we need more players, and we need to retain the existing players that have sort of either fallen out of the network and that kind of thing. So, you know, the goals were around like, you know, finding more players. The measurable would be, you know, finding enough to support a team, or in some cases like a competition, so a regional group or a number of teams so that there's games. And then, you know, setting realistic goals is sort of what we went through with the achievable process. So, you know, not setting too lofty goals with retentions, being aware that like retention rate in rugby across the board isn't necessarily the most spectacular. So it's important not to go out and set goals like 100, we're going to get 100% of the people we had pre-COVID. So just being realistic in that sort of front end. The key around the test as well is like, we've just got to set something so that we can identify something's going wrong before it goes wrong. So perhaps like a date 2 months or 1 month before the season starts, it's probably a really good chance to check in, see where you're at. I know if the other provinces are like Manitoba, we do get a huge rush of registrations on the day before the season launches. So it's something for clubs to be cognizant of as well. But if any other groups would like to add, that'd be fantastic. And Pete, I'm going to pick on your group. I don't know which one of the group numbers. So,
Ooh, we went off on a bit of a tangent, to be honest, and I was probably leading that goal. But I guess, and maybe I'm going to throw this one back at you, Patrick, because I mentioned something that the topic got brought up about video and promotions, and more a question: had anybody done any professional marketing stuff like that? There wasn't a great answer in our group, but I seem to recall seeing something from Sport Manitoba about crossover athletes and how what it's tackle rugby and football. Like maybe just explain that, and maybe that's an idea a club could steal if they're looking at maybe doing video marketing or something.
yeah, absolutely. So that's that was done through Sport Manitoba run across sport promotion, and we noticed there was no rugby posters in there, so we just asked them specifically to target football and hockey, being two of the biggest sports that cross over quite well. But obviously that's a huge recruitment tool for every sport to tap into, like the multi-sport athletes. I think everybody is a multi-sport athlete if you're playing rugby in Canada, to be realistic. I don't know many that haven't played other sports and tend to find rugby. I would look for there are some really good examples across Canada, particularly out of BC. If you follow like a club like Merrill-Lomas, do some really good video marketing. There's some great resources, but perhaps we can throw this one open to the group and like any good examples that we've seen of video marketing. We've tried a little mini series in Rugby Manitoba called Tracking the Herd. It's worth a watch if you find our YouTube channel. But it only costs you a couple of $100 for an honorarium for a videographer to come down and do some stuff. So it was well and truly worth the money. So.
Perfect. One other thing our group talked about, and again, I think I maybe directed us that way, but the idea of maybe an adult jamboree. So I was saying like people, the talk got to be, you know, we don't want to commit every week. We maybe want to play every couple of weeks or for only a month in a block. Like again, would that be an option? Is like adults get together on just the odd Saturday every morning to play jamboree style, and it's again more of a fun focus or a continue playing. So anyways, random tangent we went on.
Definitely. Does any of the other groups sort of want to sort of share some of that? Because I think we can definitely come back to these random tangents at the end, and because these are the fun parts, right? We can probably talk until 2 o'clock in the morning about these. So.
I can share my goal. My goal that I brought forward was to build a better culture within the Kieran to keep and grow the number of players on our women's and juniors teams. So at the very beginning of our season, we had like 30 girls come out. But by the end of the season, we didn't even have enough to field 15. So we just need like better engagement. So then we can keep those numbers and prosper a little bit more as a club. And I think that has a lot to do with the social aspect. Like it was a lot just because the season was kind of thrown at us last minute. Nobody really had much time to plan. It was a lot of just like come to practice, come to the games. And that was really it. So the idea that Rory gave me, thanks Rory, was to engage last year's members to see what they are looking to get out of rugby and their expectations of that. And then also what they're willing to put into it. So then if they're looking to, do like social things like each weekend, then that's that. If it's like not very social, pretty introverted group, then maybe just like a once every month or something like that. But just being a little more engaging.
So just on a culture one, and sorry, John, if you have your hand up to make a comment on this, please just unmute and go for it. But
no, I'll speak just about the goal setting after you guys are done your chat.
So a measurable goal, and somebody just messaged this to me in the chat whilst you were speaking, Samantha, is that like particularly around culture and even leading to recruitment and retention is like perhaps that retention rate is potentially your best measurable in that regard. So someone did message me about how do you judge a successful coach? Do you judge the successful coach by winning the championship? Maybe that's not sensible for most clubs to use. Maybe the retention rate is the best measure. So like something around that perhaps makes it a little more specific when it comes to culture, because culture is definitely a very tough one to measure, right? Like it's thank you, Maria, for that suggestion on coach measurement. So thanks very much. John, we'll go to you.
My goal was just to get us to be back to being a competitive team again. And it's been a number of years since we could really say that we were. And a lot of that came down to our coaching and coaching strategies, where we had for a number of years a lot of player coaches. And in all the years that I have played rugby, I've been with the Condors since 2002. And player coaches have never worked out because, you get a player coach that, okay, well, we're not doing great. I got to get on the field and help. They have that feeling that they need to be out there instead of on the sidelines. So my goal coming into being president of our club, my first goal was to finally get us a dedicated coach. And I can kind of bridge the gap between our older generation guys that I grew up with that have been with the team for 40 years or 50 years at this point, and the current generation. And it was great. Like I canvassed out to our old guys and had one of our old boys step up within the second or third conversation. And he was gung-ho about it. Like I didn't think he'd be as excited as he was. He's like, yeah, man, I'm excited to get back out. And we've had 3 indoor practices already, preseason practices, and I've already seen just everybody gel together a little bit better. I think knowing that we have some proper leadership that's going to be on the sidelines, and a guy who has a storied history with our club. And it all spurred from a conversation I had last year with these guys, and it was, what do we want to do? What's our future look like? Do we want to be a competitive team or do we want to be the social team? And I kind of took insult to that because our numbers had also, like everyone else has kind of said, been on the decline. And, you know, it's more fun when you win games than losing games. You hold on to more players the more games you win compared to the more games you lose. So let's get some structured leadership. And I really hope that I can turn it around this year. And then part 2 of that was actually mending some fences between some groups of people that have also a great history with our club. And that's a conversation for probably later, but there's a lot of fence building and bridge building that needs to be done, some mismanagement with relationships. And I hope that I can fix those and kind of bring everybody back around and, you know, just fix things and go back to the way they used to be.
So John, how do we sort of express that in like the SMART goals term? Like, how do you give yourself some specific measurables? Like, I mean, do we get creative and like say like no fights in the club, or number of days since last incident, or is that like?
Yeah, that's always going to remain at 0, I think.
Yeah, no. So just try to think in like terms of specific things that you can measure. Like,
yeah,
you know, obviously, culture is a very hard one to measure. There's a lot of ways to do it, but you know, like obviously retention rates that we've identified as potentially a good one there.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Just growing the club and keeping the people that we have, and bringing back more of the veterans to play, because that's something that I've noticed in the last couple of years. Fewer of them have come out and to strap up and come on the field with us, where we used to have 4 or 5 guys on the sidelines that were probably 10 or 15 years too old to play, but they'd still come out. Try to get those guys back out. And also just my goal, I'd like to get us to the provincials. It's been easily a decade since we were there. That's my goal. I want to get us there. I want us to be that team again.
Yeah, so I guess
it's a lofty goal, but I'm always the type of guy that shoots for the moon. So
no, absolutely. So yeah, I guess it's just try to work on putting it in just like that SMART framework, and that way you've got something to sort of check how you're going as you go before it's like waiting towards the end of the season. And you know, you're just trying to look for a barometer, something to so you can identify the problems before they occur. So you just have a think about like what you might like to you know, how you might go about measuring that. But awesome, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Somebody's got their hand up, I think, or is that still just a relic of John?
No,
No,
Maria's got her
it's
hand up
me,
there.
Maria.
Oh, sorry, there we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. I'm sorry I don't have my video on. I'm currently putting 2 toddlers to sleep, so you probably couldn't see me anywhere in the dark. I just wanted to kind of comment a bit, John, on I think a lot of clubs have, you know, winning or whatnot being as a goal. And what's really scary about that goal for me is it's actually not within your control. How you play, the attitude you have on the team, etc. A lot of that is within your control, but the actual winning is not. And so one of the things, my club, even though I have Rugby Canada in my name, my club is the Saints. And so in 2019 was kind of the first year that we said, we're not going to focus on winning at all. We're going to focus on club culture of family, you know, U5s all the way to seniors. And in 2021, we had the exact same numbers as we did in 2019. And I firmly believe that that's because we focused less on winning and more about our culture. And we were still competitive in practice. We wanted to be competitive in the league, but our goals were really around things that we can control versus wins and losses.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Maria. Thanks for sharing that. I mean,
yeah, I appreciate that too. That's a far better insight than what I came up with. And yeah, I like that.
It's certainly interesting seeing a lot of the player development stuff out there is exactly that. We don't tell the players to focus on the result, you focus on the process. And it's some of the club, you know, something to think that perhaps the administrative side of the game needs to focus on a little bit as well, like club administrators and such as well. Like it is part of that. Develop a good process that works, and that's sort of why we set these SMART goals hopefully as well. But does anyone else want to share, or shall we I think we might be good to sort of wrap it up for tonight. I do apologize for the technical issues. We'll make sure we get those ironed out for next week. We've got the Zoom link problem sorted now as well. So
Hey, Pat.
yeah, Cody, sorry, mate.
No worries. I'll share my goal if you want there.
Yeah, please do.
So
Please.
my goal is to recruit 10 players between the ages of 18 and 30 by August. And we have a hard time attracting that age group here. Even though our youth rugby program, even all the way down, like they started 5 years old here now, and it's huge. The numbers are there, but for some reason, our core group of guys are between 30 and 55. How we attract younger players to this is an obstacle I face, and I've approached people just on the street. Like I was telling my group, I will walk up to random people who will like look like they're ready to play rugby, and I'm like, just talk to them. They might come out once or twice, and then they'll leave, kind of thing. So that's my goal, and we had a good discussion about it in the group there.
So I guess what did you sort of go through the measure? So you've identified a nice clear amount. You've got your a sensible goal, or like a specific goal, which is fantastic. I guess we just got to identify some strategies to how people might achieve it. Now, I know that Dauphin's in a very unique position, and its geographical location is quite isolated, but perhaps someone like Rufus has a sort of similar story to tell. I don't know if there's perhaps some sort of sharing that can be done there, or might be a but perhaps, I mean, I'm happy to have a chat with you offline about this, but or we can sort of lead into that in the sort of discussion. But that's definitely a valuable one. It seems like it's an issue that everybody's facing. So
Yeah, for sure.
No, thanks very much for sharing that, Cody. I think I know I got a lot of just hearing what people in my group were saying, and thanks everyone who did share. And I think that will sort of wrap up the formal proceedings for the night. So feel free to stick around, and we can sort of go down some of the tangents now. But thanks very much, and appreciate you guys cutting us a bit of slack on the first time back. We'll get our show, we'll get our strict run sheets out in place to make sure that we get everything dialed in next week. So my apologies for the technical issues. So we'll get through that. But again, thanks very much for joining us, and yeah, please don't hesitate to stick around, come down some tangents, and it's really fascinating to hear the same concerns that I get from Manitoban clubs in Alberta and Saskatchewan. So I'm sure there's a lot of value in just having a listen and having a chat. So thanks very much, everyone. And
Thank you, Patrick.
he obviously had to leave, but we do thank Scott for joining us briefly tonight. And we will get his presentation. We'll record it. We'll put that up online, and it should be really valuable. Scott was with his mother, so we family comes over rugby, unfortunately. So we all understand that his decision was made. So thanks very much, guys. And Pete, if you want to take us on the tangents, let's go.
Well, I'm here to help weave the web when somebody else starts it. I don't start the ideas. I just have to.
I'll start
them off.
It's kind of a question, just something that's kind of run through my mind a little bit here. And I know we all it, and we've heard it a lot tonight with all the clubs, and big priority seems major focus is always around recruitment, getting new players into the game, getting new players into the club, being able to support club activities through new players. But I'm really curious about more so maybe about retention, and if clubs are thinking about how they're keeping their existing players, or even maybe what kind of steps or strategies they do to retain their current players on an annual basis, right? Whether that's, year-end surveys or whatever, right? Just to try to keep those already registered people, engaged people, keep the people you've already invested those coaching times or that coaching time and that season into. What are you doing in them to keep them coming back in future seasons?
I think a big part of that for me, Jordan, is why it was like almost the opposite question. Why don't people come back? And that was an exercise that Mozak did with a bunch of players that had left the Saints, like when we were not in a good spot, was why are people leaving? Why are people leaving? And we never got that it was too expensive. Maybe one person. And the other people, not fun anymore, coaching, and I don't feel welcome, right? And that basically all comes down to culture, but it's like changing that culture is the hardest piece, right? It's almost like why, but it's like how do you do that, and how do you get everybody to buy in? But I mean, in the case where the Saints became successful, it was like literally Mozak at practice every single day as almost an observer or parliamentarian when things weren't going well, and going and fixing it immediately, which honestly nobody has the time for, and he didn't have the time for.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So like exit surveys, right? So
can I just jump in on this a little bit?
Yeah.
So we do some sort of a style of exit survey, but we've also included who your top 3 impact players are on your team. So you just list it's just the coaches that see this, or maybe your rep or whoever. But we do top 3 impact players, and you'll notice that there's about 7 of the same players that repeatedly get named. Those are your ones that people look to. There'll be a few others that get, I don't know, maybe like 3 nominations or so. And then there'll be about another third of your team that doesn't get any. So it's important to really acknowledge the people that don't get any and ask why those people don't get any. And usually it's because they have no connection. So then it's targeting those bottom 10, because it's easy to keep the players that are involved and obviously shooting at the top, whatever, recognizable. But if you start connecting with those bottom 10 and just kind of like in conversation and try and make it not super like, number 1, why are you lonely? Like, don't be like, why don't you have any friends? But like genuinely try and reach out to those players, or even assign your top 10 people to have somebody in the bottom or whatever to reach out and try and bring those players back. Because if you're only looking at like the people that are like, that it's serving, then you're totally gonna miss the people that it's not. So kind of similar to what Maria was saying, like, why is it not working for those people? And usually it's connection.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's gold. So thank you so much for sharing that. And you know what? You're right. It's not always about the rugby, right? And the rugby experience. It's about the relationships, right? So.
And I'm sure, I don't want to get like too split here, but that's for our women's program. It's really worked. Our women have been really receptive with that. I'm not sure how it would play off with the men's program at first, but it takes a little while for them to buy into that kind of stuff. But yeah.
I don't know. I think that's such a clever idea. I've never, we've done measured like game time, average game time, and you kind of use that as a way of trying to find the alienated guys. But that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I know from our club experience, like any successes that we've had with player retention have come from getting people into that team bubble, making sure that they have a friend group within the team. Doesn't always, not everybody has to be best friends with everybody, but they need to have a social environment and and feel welcome regardless. And every success that we've had with retaining players has come from that. I guess going back to some of the hows and the whats has been proactive engagement, that whenever there's a new player, it's senior players taking the time out to get to know that person, chat with that person, make them feel welcome, making sure that not just for practices, but for social events, making sure that those people are getting explicit invites, not just at the end of practice saying, oh, we're doing this on Friday, but that plus okay, who's going and talking to this person or that person and giving them a specific warm invite. Hey, I'd love to see you out on Friday. You know, are you going to be there, kind of thing, right? So those are some of the kind of, I guess, soft skill things that I think would go into that question, Jordan, from, I guess, the front end rather than the back end of the season.
Awesome.
One other thing, sorry guys, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but that came up in our chat earlier was also like, just how do you get people to be social? Because sometimes it's that hurdle of just getting into that social atmosphere, like off the pitch. Like sometimes you've got an age discrepancy. A big one that we really tried out this past season, and it worked really great, and we're going to keep doing, is with our women's squad, is having suppers after practice. So we have 4 people assigned, and they only have 1 practice out of the whole season that they have to do this. 4 people, they just have to figure out a supper together. They bring the supper the one night. So, I mean, we had spaghetti a whole lot that one year, but everybody stayed, even if it was like for 20 minutes, they were there into that social environment, and everybody stayed. It just became like a cultural norm. Everybody just stays for supper because it's free. Half of the people that are kind of weird or like on the fringe are kind of in that like university age, so it's free, so they're going to stay. So that worked really well, actually, is just assigning people like, this is your week to make supper, and you assign like 2 friends with 2 friends, and then they bond over making supper even. So it kind of added another social element, just get them over that hurdle, and then they came out to like our more formal social nights later. So
something that's helped my club, I find, with that different vibe that we're kind of talking about, is specifically having like a fun practice at least like once a month, where you're doing fitness but you're playing like fun games where you have a chance to laugh with your teammates, right? It's not just like running drills, it's not just going as hard as you can, but you're actually like having that fun element to put into your practice, and you can kind of goof around. You're not going to get in trouble for it. As well as pairing up our vet players with our brand new players and kind of have like a buddy system, because we find that everybody on the field wants to help other people, and then you have like 50 people talking to you or yelling at you because it's the middle of the game and it's like super overwhelming. So we say that like, okay, you can talk to this one person. If you're going to offer advice, give it to that one person, so they don't have like 50 people trying to tell them how to run forward with the ball, because it can be really intimidating, right? So just kind of limiting the amount of advice coming in, but then also like having fun and taking that time to laugh and have joy in a practice, right?
Awesome.
Just something I'd like to add to, just thinking of kind of the teenage girls, because I know, Jordan, we were kind of talking about that. The teenage years are difficult to retain. I find ways to kind of engage my youth girls anyway is to kind of at the beginning of the season, when they can kind of get a little catty, so to speak, like teenage girls do, we just kind of sit in a circle and we're just like, hey, what are you good at? So everyone around the circle has to say something good that the other person does. And it kind of builds that team bonding and gets them out of that negative space of like, oh, I don't like her, she's not my friend, or oh, she goes to this school, I don't really like that school. So instead, it kind of creates this positive, hey, she's really good at this, and hey, she's really good at that. And then I always force them to change partners. So no, you partnered with this person for last drill, you're going to change it up and we're going to switch it up. So now they're kind of creating that experience. And then I always sit down with them kind of mid-season and I'm like, hey, what are your goals for this season? Like, are you just here to have fun, or do you want to develop into our U18 program? Do you want to be a senior woman? Do you want to go to university? And I'll help you get there. And then that's kind of where I work with Erica there, and we kind of collaborate if that's their goal to move forward. And if not, that's okay. Then we just make the best of the season is, and then always convince their friends to come out with them. So
yeah. No, I like that. Like a lot.
I think if I can pull a theme out of kind of something that, or what everybody has said so far, it's kind of the idea of meeting people where they're at, whether it's doing a postseason survey, whether it's your start of the season engagement, whether it's just that, right, asking them what they want out of rugby and trying to help them down that pathway. I think that's a lot of what goes into both recruitment and retention, is meeting people where they're at, understanding it, and trying to feed into that as much as you can, match your club up with what people are looking to get out of it. Because I think sometimes we get into that box of, as club leaders, as, you know, provincial union people, thinking this is what we think it should be, the way that we think it should be. This is